Nice.
Mr. King, we're ready to go.
I copy that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us December 21st, 2020 for the Board of Education special meeting. Brennan, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. King,
Here.
Ms. Reese, Ms. Sebastian,
Here.
Mr. Elam. Here. Ms. Mansfield.
Here.
Yeah, I mean, if you want.
Okay, welcome everybody here this evening. Hopefully each of you should have received a number of information through email throughout the last several days. Brennan was able to put together a spreadsheet in regards to some of the costs that we're going to take a look at this evening. And then also kind of what's available as far as the total cost of those potential projects that will need to be decided upon this evening by the facilities committee and the board, and then also taking a look at the overall budgets, and then also just to kind of give some information in regards to what's available, estimated balances with the permanent improvement budget, and what we expect to see with receipts and expenditures, and kind of have an idea with our capital building project account, how much money we would have to work with if we would need to look at additional locally funded initiatives or LFIs and other items. Does anyone have any questions before we get started at all on what's we have displayed here on the screen?
The only thing I asked Justin was to allow Brennan to explain what our FY 2023 receipts and expenditures would be and include that for the conversation tonight.
Sure. Is that already on here, Brandon?
No, and like I said, it's just going to be the same. If I can't predict 2023, so I would just say use the same numbers as 2022.
But then that gives us a net 300 and some thousand additional, correct, Brennan?
As long as there's nothing else that comes up that is needed. That's all I know as of now.
Any other questions in regards to those account numbers?
Well, I have one question too.
Sure.
I'm just not totally clear on this, and this was something I asked Brendan today. So in the documents that we reviewed at the core status meeting, it was 23.6 million had been summed up for the school, for the K through 5. And we have 25 million in the budget. So is that 1.4 million, is that in these numbers already, or is that available in addition? And sorry I didn't ask it like that earlier, Brendan. I know you answered the question, but it's still not 30. Is that an additional 1.4, or is it somewhere in the numbers you've already said?
So here's the answer that I can give, and Brennan, please correct me if this is incorrect. OFCC has determined that to construct our K through 5 building will cost approximately $25 million. So the 23.6 is currently what we have allocated to construct the project as it is right now. That additional 1.4 million can be used for anything on this list, or it doesn't have to be used at all.
Okay.
Is that correct, Brennan?
Correct.
And that's outside of the numbers that you sent us for these other funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I wasn't sure what you meant by that.
What's in that budget? What's in this budget line item right here is what is known as of today, which would be the 23.6, the architect, the CMR, the commission agent fees, as well as the 3.5 for the football stadium,
Okay,
which also includes in there the architect fees, CMR fees as well.
So as of right now, the district has $1.4 million to either add additional LFIs or to choose not to add LFIs.
thank you.
In discussing some of these items, item number one was the interactive monitors in the classroom. That was an area that, in speaking with Brennan, we felt that the district could invest in that upgrade for technology in the classrooms by using some of our outside PI money. Is that the correct account that it's from, Brennan?
Correct.
Okay. And that would be the 105,450. So that would not be a decision that needed to be made tonight because the district would be able to have the money set aside to invest in that technology.
Can you explain what an interactive monitor is?
Do you want to talk a little bit about what you saw on your site visit?
When we went to New Bremen, they had where everything projected on the whiteboard, so you could control everything from standing at your board. You could control your computer. It was split screen. You could be showing a video while taking notes over here and do dual things at the same time. You could divide your screen and have groups working in different screens all up at the front. It was pretty amazing.
Thank you.
You can see the cost for number two.
Wait, can I just ask one question about that? So you're saying that we're gonna look at that then down the road and the money should be there, but there's no guarantee that it will be there, correct?
I'm saying our recommendation is to do it and PI money will be available to do that.
But there's no guarantee the money will be
The
there.
money will be there
How do we know that?
because you can budget it in there. We currently have available funds of $245,000 right now that aren't budgeted. PI money.
You say it's not budgeted. It's just money that's there that has
It's not encumbered.
not encumbered.
Correct.
Okay, as you can see, item number two on there was rubber playground surface. That was an estimate or a projected cost estimate of $342,000. Number three was porcelain tile. That was more of a cosmetic and also a cleanliness of the building type thing that we saw. It was 214,382.08. The additional square footage that will be a major decision that needs to be made this evening. That will to be able to fit the building for the necessary mechanicals, electrical, plumbing, and also classroom space to hold up to 1,000 students. It would also be additional space in the cafeteria as well. You can see that dollar amount, $1.361,706.66. The turf is one that could be removed from this list. The turf would be a athletic boosters / athletic department project. If the athletic department / boosters could not secure those funds, that would be a project that would not happen, and the district would receive just a normal natural grass surface for the football stadium. One of the board members had asked about terrazzo flooring, so I was able to get in contact with Laura at Garmin & Miller. She provided the necessary cost per square foot for terrazzo flooring. Multiply that based on the areas and corridors, which are hallways, cafeterias, also restrooms, square footage, and came up with that $669,000 amount. Number 7 is storm shelter requirement. That is the best estimate cost from Garmin & Miller. at 800,000. Up to 80% of that would be co-funded by the OFCC, which means once our number is redrawn for CFAB, the district would receive a credit. If the district made the decision to do the storm shelter now, the district would have to foot the bill up front for the complete $800,000 worth of that project. Is that correct, Laura?
So where that money is a little off. So yes, $800,000 is what you should budget, but you still can't go over your maximum allowed that OFCC is going to co-fund. So it wouldn't necessarily be an additional 800,000. It's just you take out something else that you can't fund for 800,000. How about that?
So what
Because
would be the credit then?
you're still only going to get your co-funding on the portion of the project that OFCC has agreed to.
Okay.
Would never get that on top, that 800, get your co-funding of that 800,000 on top of what they already have identified in the master plan.
So we would get 300 and some then is the credit.
So the storm shelter, they still have that allowance in there.
Right?
But you're right. It's still, the rest, it still gets split as the 80-20 as long as it stays within the budget of the project.
So I guess my question is what would be the credit then if we have to pay it up front? What in return would we get as a credit towards the storm shelter?
Still the 80%. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Just like the rest of the project.
Okay, so can someone translate the dollars to that to dollars for me?
So you're not, so Laura, you're not saying it wouldn't be 80% of 800,000, is that correct?
It is 80% of 800,000.
Okay,
As long as the total project doesn't go over.
that.
Correct.
Okay,
Oh,
so we would
gotcha.
we would still put 800,000 today dollars in, but our net cost after OFCC gives us money back is still a net 160. Is that right?
So OFCC would pay for 640, we would pay for 160.
Yeah. Okay. But it's just the language is different.
It's the 800,000. Yes, it is a cost of 800,000, but it's not in addition. It doesn't add to the total at the bottom. Is what I was trying to say. That the project cost for the K5 is still the 23,600,000. So we don't add the 800,000 to that.
I got you.
So Laura, would we only, if we do the storm shelter, we would only get credited for 24 million then if you include the 400,000 they allow?
You get credit for the 23,600,000. Your master plan budget. Sorry, wait. Sorry, say your question again. Now I'm thinking on it.
The way I understood it is if we are at budget on the building, let's say we come in exactly 23.6 million, which we know won't happen, but let's just, for example's sake, then we decide to do the storm shelter, we would only get credit for 400,000, even if it cost us 800,000.
No.
Okay.
Because that extra 400,000, you're not adding that to the project, so you're staying within the 23.6. You just don't get to spend that 400,000 on something else that you would have maybe have embellished.
So then you're saying if we came at budget on everything else on the project, we would have $0 for the storm shelter then?
It would just lump into the whole project budget.
So we would basically have to cut back 600 and some thousand from somewhere else in the project if we expected to get all that co-funded.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, is the budget number we're working to 23.6 or 25?
23.6 is what, as the OFCC says, the budget to build based off the number of students and the square footage. So what she's saying is if you want to do the storm shelter, we're going to have to cut out something in that 23.6, not based on the stuff listed here. If you want to get credit for it.
25 million included in 1.4.
So the LFI was, I thought the LFI was 3.5 million.
No, LFIs, these are all LFIs. These are, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, all the LFIs listed here are not in the 23.6, correct?
Some of the storm shelter is right.
If you want to, then you have to take something away because it's not, if you want to get credit for it.
Well,
That's
there's
what
400, or sorry, whatever that number is, just under 400,000
Right,
is already
but-
in there.
Right, but you would have to cut out to make sure you don't go over that 23.6 IFC says is your budget.
Okay, understand. So the OFCC number is 23.6.
Correct.
25 is our loan number.
Or, correct.
Okay. I'm with you. So Laura, can I just ask a question? What's the significance of the OFCC calling that number for the storm shelter an allowance, since it's still under the 80-20 rule?
So anything that they identify as an allowance is a use it or lose it kind of thing. Not saying you have to do it. So like the K-5 building, they expect that you're going to meet their OSDM requirements, the Ohio School Design Manual. And you signed off on the master plan saying, yes, when you enter to the project, that yes, we're going to do that. We're going to meet that. Well, the storm shelter is not a requirement. And so they're not going to put that, lump that within the main body of the cost of the project. Instead, they're going to put it out as an allowance, and then you decide, are you going to move forward with it? And then they will co-fund that allowance. And if you decide no, well, then they take it away. The same thing happens with, they've got another allowance in there for the site safety access. If you had no need to put a new drive off of State Route 201, that would go away as well. That's, I think, $300,000. That if you would have no need to have another turn lane off for the new entry into the K-5, they take away that $300,000.
Okay, so our line that talks about that, the widening of 201, so that's the same, follows the same pattern as the storm shelter. That 500,000 would have to fit into the 23.6 for us to get the 80% back when the time comes. Is that correct?
At least 300,000 of that has to stay within your project budget for the K-5. 200,000 could be moved out as an LFI.
But then we wouldn't get the 80% back.
So they only fund for the 300,000, and when your project for that is over 300,000, because it's off-site, it's outside of your property line, they won't pay for it.
Okay, so that is different than the storm shelter.
It's either you use the 300,000 or you lose it. But then anything over that, because we're off-site, is funded completely 100% by you.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, items 8, 9 have to do with potential installation of wood gym floor. Brandon, if you have a question for Laura on this, you put down.
Hey, Laura, I got the email earlier about the square footage. Is that it on top of what if they just put the regular type of flooring in right now? Like the $9, it had like
Correct. Yes.
that, and then I just did 66% more since it was $15 a square foot for a full length one.
Right. So that you can get rid of that $100,000 cost that you have in there. So there is a base flooring noted for the gym. For elementary gyms, they don't co-fund a wood gym floor. They expect that would be a like a rubber surface, athletic surface like that.
Okay.
So you're saying remove item number 9, Laura?
No. 8.
8, excuse me. Okay.
Not that one,
This one?
Yes.
that one.
Sorry, I changed my numbers on. Better.
Laura, you want to talk about number 10 on there a little bit, or the new number 9 with the
Wait.
widening?
Sorry, the full one is the one you're removing, right?
Yeah,
So does the OFCC co-fund the $60,000 version one? Or not? Well, that's all
So-
out.
So that 60,000 is to get a wood gym floor. At $9 a square foot, we were basically, if you were to install a wood gym floor, it's $15 a square foot. There is a base flooring already in the square footage cost. And so we were figuring roughly $6 a square foot for whatever would be in that base. So the overage would be the $9 a square foot. And that's what that 60,000 is.
Okay. And that's all up to, they do not co-fund that.
The wood gym floor, no, nor bleachers.
Are we not looking at a full-size gym anymore? With the base surface?
We do have a 74-foot gym currently shown in the program.
Which is the same length as our middle one.
Right. I thought the big thing was to get the full-size gym. I don't.
That's full size, I mean, it's the same length as our high school gym. Or no, it's a little shorter. It's probably, high school is probably 80.
That was 92 or something.
No, college length's 92. No.
74 feet is appropriate for an OHSA sanctioned event.
Okay.
So like your Sydney's and your Piccolas are whole districts, and University of Dayton is a college length.
Right.
You don't have it for, yeah, University of Dayton.
So at 74 feet, are we saying that's a full-size gym?
Well, at least a gym floor. But you're not gonna get like full-size seating that seats like your high school gym does currently. I guess, I mean, what are you looking for when you say full-size gym? Are you saying like capacity seating or like length of playing surface? Length of playing surface
I
is an
thought
OHSAA regulation.
it was playing surface.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah. Now, if you wanted to add a couple of rows of bleachers, that would be additional cost.
Well, I've seen several of those in other schools and they only have 2 or 3 rows of
Yeah.
bleachers.
Which if the district decided to do that, that would be plenty for an elementary gym.
As when I said full-size, at least that the gym would be appropriate, that if we had multiple events occurring, that we could have a middle school game, an elementary game, or a high school game occur in that gym.
Correct, yes, you could. Yep. Absolutely. Because you currently, it's the same length as your middle school. You currently have your middle school games being played in there. You have your b-ball stuff, you have your metro. Those kind of things that currently use our middle school gym. Well, pre-COVID.
Right.
Pre-COVID.
Now, is that true, your statement you just made, is that true? Only if we do the wood floor and not the,
You could still play on a target floor.
what he just asked, we could do middle school tournament or middle school games or high school games?
Sure. I mean, I play high school games on tartan floor. I know I'm old, but our sectional tournament was at Atlanta High School in Atlanta, and they were on a tartan floor. I always felt like a jump higher on it, but I don't think that was true.
My
Okay,
first
just
school.
wanna make sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's ideal, but you can definitely play on a tartan floor.
Just sounds.
I call it tartan, but it's probably a multi-purpose type floor. You just might get a little more floor burns when you dive for a loose ball. It's definitely doable.
So, I mean, we're kind of breaking down the costs and what these are for, and then are we gonna dive into each one of them, or is this the appropriate time to dive in specifically on this?
We can dive in whenever you guys see fit. I'm just going through
I
them.
like the way you said the first one, since we've already passed a whole bunch of them, we did not dive into. So
Right.
when we finish.
Yeah, we'll finish going through and then we'll go back.
All right, Laura, do you want to talk about the widening of 201?
Yeah, so we're not looking at doing anything to Ag and Broad, but to put a new entry into the K5 area, we will need to widen the road from your existing entry north to the new K5 entry. In talking with the county and our civil engineer, we were looking at roughly that might be $500,000 to do that work. 300,000 of that is part of your co-funded. It's already in the master plan for a turn-off lane into the site.
Okay.
So how do we know that we need that now when we haven't even established where the K5 building is? Molly?
So we do have a rough idea of where the building is going to be. We've done quite a bit of site analysis to look at a good location for that. And then looking at all of that and knowing that you currently have issues with traffic coming into your main entry and how buses cross to get out as students are coming in, and then adding another building into that. That's why, looking at that, we believe adding another entry will help alleviate the amount of traffic that's coming in that one entry.
Thank you.
And Laura, I have a question, because when we did the prior project, we were not allowed to put 3 entrances along 201. Now that may have been because they were too close together for the existing buildings. Has that been addressed with ODOT?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
And the last one is number 11, site lighting project. Brendan, you want to talk about that one a little bit?
Just to clarify, when we issued the certificate of participations, one of the stipulations is we had to do some type of improvement to the high school building, since currently the company that has heard us on the certificate of participations and has an interest in the high school building, that's what they would want something done to enhance it. Talking with Laura, if you remember the OFCC analysis, we had to do some upgrades to the high school already based on what they had decided when they reviewed. And one of those was security lighting was not adequate. So that's what we're recommending to do to cover that basis. And that was a projected cost of that. I'm also contacting our bond counsel to verify that will suffice the requirement related to this, since it's not actually in the building. So we have to do that. We would have to do that no matter what.
So when you say site lighting, you're talking about like parking lot lighting, et cetera? Is that all the way around the building, front and back?
Laura, is that? I don't remember. I would imagine, but I don't know.
They talked about sidewalks as well, but I'd have to go back through and read. It's in the building assessment that.
Okay.
Okay, so now I think it's the appropriate time, as we briefly reviewed items 2 through 10, to go back through individually each item, and discuss them as a collective group and share thoughts as a group on what each of us thinks of those items. So number 2, rubber playground surface. Anyone care to share any thoughts?
This is Jacob. I'm not an expert. I think that the rubber playground surfaces that I've seen are wonderful. I think it makes a nice, clean area for students to participate and to play on the playground. But also know at $342,000 that we would be, that's the entrance almost to the off of 201. That is multiple other LFIs that I think that we need going forward that we're going to see more benefit from. Am I correct in that the playgrounds, if we don't do the rubber playground surface, isn't there a safety approved surface that will be at the playground already?
Yes. So the school design manual asks that you put in a soft surface and hard surface play areas both. For the soft surface area, it is typically an engineered wood fiber, basically like a mulch, but it's not normal mulch. It's engineered to compact together and act like a mat. It's also non-splintering.
So based on that, thank you, Laura. Based on that, we've already have a safety approved appropriate surface there. That I would say that this could be not as an immediate LFI, but put it down into an option B format, that if things are executed at a lower cost, once it goes out to bid and we have more flex in the money, that would be something to evaluate at that point. But I think in our initial LFIs, that we should move this to section B as an optional item.
Yeah, I don't contest that. I don't know the cost of like rubber mulch as opposed to wood mulch underneath the playground equipment, but other than that, I don't know about a rubber surface itself. I think I agree with Jacob.
And just so you know, this is not just the straight cost for that. This is the cost over and above the engineered wood fiber.
I believe it was mentioned at the last meeting that this was a kind of a pie in the sky kind of item. Correct?
Yeah, that's
So the, in the educational visioning meetings, maybe I misheard this, but I thought the teachers talked about wanting a hard surface, not necessarily this rubber surface, but because it was easier to maintain and clean off, and the kids could go out when it was not as nice of weather. Like maybe it rained yesterday, it would be muddy today, and it wouldn't be. So how does, I guess, Laura, this question is to you. How does that engineered surface you were just, or whatever you put down, the engineered stuff, how does that fit in with that? Or is that totally different?
So it acts just like mulch. So if your mulch is wet, this surface is wet. It typically, we have some drainage. They try to slope the ground underneath to drain away as well. But if it's raining or if it has rained, generally they stick to the hard surface areas and not the soft surface areas.
So we still could have some hard surface areas somewhere.
Blacktop.
Yes.
Wow.
The design manual asks that we have both hard surface areas and soft surface areas. You will have both.
Are you considering blacktop a hard surface, Laura?
Yeah.
So the soft surface would be under gymnastics style kind of thing, things that kids are going to fall off of. Correct?
Yep.
And the rest of it will be blacktop.
Yeah, all of the fall zone areas, we would want to have the engineered wood fiber underneath.
Right.
I mean, I'll speak up, I guess, just to give you my 2 cents as a financial treasurer. Currently, we know what's estimated to be available. We need to think out, what do we mostly need right now? Space. Plain and simple. Which one addresses space up there? Like, I get that you want to go through each one, but it's right in front of us what we need. If we stick to the thing right now, when we open that building, you'll be bringing more modulars in. So I'm just being honest. I don't want to go through each one of these because it's pretty much self-explanatory right now, what we need. And I don't want us to see go through what we went through here in this building. We opened it and we were already out of space. I just wanted to say that.
So here's the thing, we sat in this room, or not this room, but a room, and discussed this when the option was to spend 2.8 million estimated dollars on 6 classrooms or use it for athletics. And we chose to use it for athletics. First, the facilities committee recommended and the board accepted it, so.
And you still can get extra classrooms. And you're covering something that was promised previously that was taken away. Just remember that, why we said that. They were promised a football stadium previously.
Oh, yes, yes.
And it got taken away because numbers came in over budget. We're given a football stadium and we still have funds available to get extra classrooms. I know these are tough decisions, but we got to distinguish between a want and a need. We need space.
Right, but, right, we also are battling against what OFCC has said we're getting, right?
Right.
They've already said, we only approve you for this much, is all that they approve us for. Granted, when they redo the numbers, more than likely, we'll get this money back. Right? But if something weird happens and it doesn't change, now we have a building that we're paying for space that don't have the funds to sustain because the students aren't here. Now, I don't believe that'll happen, right? But we're weighing those risks versus benefits, right, of what we're deciding, right? So as we look at these, I think though we still need to categorize it. This is something we'll even do if there's an option to do them. 1, 2 is, I don't know what additional square footage of 1.361 million is.
That was my question as well.
So the additional square footage for 1.361 million will give you the necessary mechanical spaces. Laura, you can correct me if I'm wrong, please. The necessary square footage for mechanical spaces, electrical, restrooms, media center, or excuse me, cafeteria that will house 1,000 students. Did I miss anything there, Laura?
And then the additional 700 square feet in the gymnasium to make it the size of your existing middle school gym today.
Correct. Sorry, I forgot that one. So we currently have 1.451 million to work with. Okay, out of our 23.6, 25 is the total cost. So, you know, if you would do that additional square footage at 1.361, if everything stays on budget as is, you'd have roughly, I don't know, I'm not a math guy, $90,000.
And that you have to do that for the site lighting projects.
Yeah. So that would go to the lighting project. So, I mean, if you would do the square footage, you would build a building that would basically say OFCC's projected numbers of 873 is probably going to be incorrect, but we're going to provide the necessary space for students and staff to house 1,000.
There are enough additional classrooms in
This
this?
would be 3 additional classrooms.
3, okay.
Yep, 3 additional classrooms as well.
So,
And then it also, I'm sorry, Jacob, just real quick. It would also, like I said, with the additional mechanical and electrical, that would allow you to, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would also allow you to expand on wings in the future as well.
Yeah, so we added to the mechanical spaces and the restroom spaces so that when you are ready, when you have the students and you're ready to build classrooms on, your mechanical spaces are already ready for that. If we don't increase the size for those, when you go to build those classrooms, you will also need to build mechanical spaces and restrooms for those classrooms.
So are the bathrooms for 1,000 students or is it for 1,000 plus?
1,000.
And if we decided to say the additional mechanical, electrical space we didn't want to include that for an additional add-on, that we would put that in if we did an add-on, we would add those costs to that. Would that change the dollar value in this LFI?
Yes.
Little bit or significant? Just a whack. I don't want to do it. Or the community, so make it closer.
Well, and Jacob, I'm gonna just interject. The bigger problem is if you have to go back and do it, it's gonna be a lot more costly than doing it when you first do it, is my impression.
I would agree with that if we're going to expand that facility versus build an entirely different facility based on what our real numbers are, that we could actually end up with an additional elementary. For an example, a K2 building would take a significant number of students out of this building, out of the K5, right? So then it's a 3-5 building.
I agree with you, but what are we gonna do years 2025 through really 2030? I mean, that's what I mean, for the midterm, I'm more concerned about what we're gonna do in the next 8 years than what we're gonna do in the next 20 years.
So if the trend continues, Lori, 1,000 students is not gonna be enough. And I mean, I thought so when we talked about this before, part of my comfort level for putting the money toward athletics was that we were told that the school that's built for 873 could easily contain 1,000 students. They could absorb those extra 127 students. So what has changed that we can't absorb the extra 127? And then, as Jacob said, maybe look at another school down the line. And that number is just based on trends that I'm telling you, not scientific, just what has happened in recent years here.
I think part of that was when we were with our previous architects and looking at floor plans, they talked about having the, I forget the term, so I'm just gonna use the simplistic one, is the open activity space that teachers can take students out into and do educational opportunities. Is there a specific name for that space?
Extended learning.
Extended learning areas, thank you. Is that once we exceeded that, they were gonna build the extended learning areas to where all we had to do was add a wall and a door, and that would then turn into a classroom to house those additional 100-something students. Is that they were establishing those extended learning areas that if we grew faster than they projected with OFCC, that we had mild, easy construction to do to then establish classroom space off of current existing space. This is the way it was explained, is how they could go from the 8-something to the 1,000.
Right, and I remember some other things, so I remember maybe increasing the class size by a couple, because this is at 25 students, which we've never experienced here probably in recent years. I think another thing was if you cut down the size of the classroom, the OFCC recommended size, that we could have got a couple extra ones, even within the budget, which is probably still possible.
We've done that.
Maybe, yeah, so
So I guess my question as your superintendent to the collective group, I'd like some responses because I'm a little unsure on where to go. We built a building for 873. It's going to be too small. The day we cut ribbons, where do you want me to put them at? Modulars?
well, I
The
mean,
current elementary building will still be here.
yeah, that's what we were told, right? Is it would backfill into the elementary?
Sure. If you have space as your middle school and high school continues to get larger.
The reason we were told the elementary was the
Okay.
ideal pick
Who
was because,
told you that?
well, all of us were in the room, and it was based on the numbers.
I know. Which group told you that?
11 Porter told us.
Okay, 11 Porter is no longer here.
So what's the new story then? Because the idea was that there was a difference in the number of students between what the FCC projected and what would happen, and those students would fit That's why we didn't get to middle school, right? Because those students would not fit in that space.
I'm
That's why
not,
the
I'm
next
not here to
building
talk
will
poorly
go.
about companies. I'm really not. But I'm just gonna give you a heads up. Levin Porter told you that you had $3.5 million for your football stadium project. Most football stadium projects are $5 million.
Actually, they estimated even less than that.
That's my point. So we're gonna have to make major cuts to our football stadium project as well, which was discussed in our last stadium project meeting. So I don't think our numbers were necessarily accurate that we received. I think there were a lot of promises that weren't gonna be able to be kept. And a lot of things would have been pulled out from under the rug at the last minute, and we know how that's gone in the past. That's just my 2 cents. You can disagree with me, and that's okay. I'm just telling you personally, I don't think a lot of the things that were promised to us were gonna be able to happen.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if they were even promised, right? So at the point, they were just saying, based on our thoughts, this is what we think can happen. Based on what our assessment, this is what we believe can happen. So as we now, so it's hard to, switch gears really fast based on, we sat and spent all this time getting all this information, and then kind of the ideology and the cost factors, and then flip around and say, hey, by the way, all of that stuff you have kind of established with the community and how we're going forward is not correct based on what we're seeing now, and just being able to like switch right over without going, okay, I don't understand what's happening here. So the reason why I agree, the last thing we want to do, to answer your question, right, is one, to bring back modules. Got that. None of us wanted that. We only want the ones that are here now. And so that's the whole reason why we're going through this process, right? And so that's why I was asking the additional questions with regards to the mechanical, electrical spaces. If there was a way that we could say, although it's going to cost more down the road, we're going to have more money down the road from the OFCC return. Because we are spending 100% of our dollars right at this moment versus only 20% of our dollars. So how do we maximize that on the front end? I mean, maybe that's a terrible idea, but I'm trying to balance, key essentials, classrooms, electrical and HVAC spaces does not educate children. I get it, it sets us up better to expand that facility. We don't even know if that's what we're doing from that aspect. But what we do know is that we need more classroom space. And so how do we maximize our LFI dollars to get more classroom spaces, focusing specifically on classroom?
So I can't give an answer to some of your question there that you had. So going back to one of our earlier programs, before we looked at increasing square footage to the mechanical space for other areas, one of the things that the difference that and it's not lineal. I can't say it's exactly only this, but the difference that we had between the two programs was roughly 1,322 square feet. So if you take that times the 245.22 cost per square foot, it's roughly $324,000 that we have allocated to mechanical spaces. Now, I can't say we can completely cut out that whole 324 because some of that may be needed because of other areas that we've increased.
So, that cutting that out, so for a little over $1 million is getting us additional cafeteria space, the 700 square feet on the gym, and 3 classrooms.
And food services increased too, Laura, correct?
Yep.
And the restrooms.
That was mentioned, but food service was not, but there is an increase in the food service.
So, looking at this, right? I like to go both directions, right? for us to have everything exactly what we said, it was 1.361. So out of the remaining spaces, taking the mechanical and electrical out of it, what are the other spaces besides the gym and the bathrooms that we have the ability to still be able to house and maintain and educate the students, but we could cut back on in those other spaces? Whether that's more extended learning environments that we could reduce one or two of those to entrance space, office space. You know, is it a cafeteria or is it just a cafeteria?
So spaces that you could look at if you didn't want to do the additional square footage that you could either, and I don't know, I'd have to work with Laura on it. You could either eliminate or shrink would be your media center space, square footage. You could also look at eliminating extended learning areas. There's also a sensory room that's been provided for social emotional learning. That could be eliminated.
Can I just ask a question? Instead of the word eliminated, can they be dual purpose at all? Like in the visioning sessions?
Your extended learning spaces would be dual purposes. This could be used for tutoring, it could be used for test taking, it could be used for small group instruction, it could be used for
But they're not big enough for a classroom.
OSCC manual is like 850 square feet. These are smaller spaces. So those are the kind of areas that we could look at phasing out.
And the reason I brought that up is
You could also eliminate your cafeteria square footage if you don't want, housing there as far as the amount of students they could hold.
so I don't know what I don't know, right? I don't know how many extended learning spots are being projected.
Three extended learning areas, one sensory room, one cafeteria, obviously, one media center. Those are the areas that you could look at.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was extended learning center for every 2 classrooms. There's
No, it'd be 3 total for K through 5.
Mhm.
One sensory room for K through 5, one media center, one cafeteria.
we look at the cafeteria space. Well, we increased that from what would house 875 students to 1,000 students.
873 to 1,000, yeah.
And so is that enhanced by, or the size of that really for 1,000 students, teachers and staff to be in the cafeteria all at one time?
Be 1,000 students because you have a separate area for staff to eat, like we do currently.
Will we
Be a
have,
small room off of that for like a staff dining area.
right?
The student dining is based off of students at tables and chairs for 3 lunch periods.
Okay,
So to reduce, to get 1,000 students in the size for an 873 student dining, you would have to go to possibly like 4 lunch periods.
because I mean, somebody's eating lunch at 10 a.m. and somebody's
What
eating
we
lunch
have
at
now.
night.
That's what we have now.
So,
Do kindergartners go to the lunchroom?
Beg your pardon?
Do kindergartners go to the
Sure.
lunchroom?
Yes. Yes, it is.
so when we look at those, are those extended learning spaces included in the OCC requirements?
That'd be a Laura question. I don't know that answer. Those aren't required, are they, Laura?
No,
But were they included in our original projections with our, 873 students that OFCC was looking at for the dollars per square footage?
so you get so many square feet per student. And you have academic space and then you have core spaces. And by reducing the size of your classroom spaces from the 900 square feet down to the 850, you can take that 50 square feet and you can pull it over into other academic areas. But you can't take that and move it into gymnasium space.
Right.
So like we get creative with how we adjust the square footage to allow you, like if we reduce them, then you can get another classroom in, but it all stays within that academic space.
So we're essentially creating those extended learning areas specifically off that square footage. Yeah. So that's obviously something we probably want to get rid of. And so does I guess what else, well then, these are the LFI pieces, right, or areas we're talking about reducing, but what is included in the overall regular price, I guess? The original price under this 1.3 million, that is available to be validated. Is that less parking? Is that less?
Are you asking about your additional square footage?
No, that's, so in the 23 million or 500, right? Is, I guess, a better understanding of what that space is to see how we can, I'm just trying to see if there's ways that we can blend, right? 50 square foot off of other things, let's just use that as an example, to create the funding to pay for the additional classrooms.
Well, that was the areas that I mentioned before, as far as you need to take a look at your extended learning areas, your cafeteria, sensory room, gymnasium, media center,
Food service.
and food service. Those are the spots that if you wanted to reduce square footage, you could.
Right. Because, I mean, right. So, looking at food service, when we talk about food service, does that mean it's a complete cafeteria, what, in the back where they're cooking and everything?
Yes.
So would it be unique to have a central cooking area where the high school is now, and then they're brought the food on?
We did that.
Yeah.
So reduce that space to increase educational space? I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea. I don't know.
Well, that's what we did
So
before.
in your assessment, I believe, so OFCC has given you funding for a full kitchen, not a warming kitchen, which I believe is what you're talking about, having a central kitchen over in your main building and then having this as just a warming kitchen. Right now in your master plan, they have funding in here for a full kitchen. So you would take, I believe, if you decide to go with a warming kitchen here, that the funding changes.
Let you convert that into space, correct?
I understand that, Laura. Thank you. I guess probably the biggest issue is that, OFCC offers us many things that they will do co-funding on. Currently, we're receiving 0 co-funding. We won't receive co-funding for 8 to 10 years. So it's validating what we think we can do with the best amount for our students with the dollars that we currently have. And it's okay that, this is a great example, that if we decide that our operation is better suited with a warming kitchen in there, it is okay we didn't get their 80% on that because we couldn't afford the 20% or the 100% of it on the front end from that aspect. That's what I keep getting torn with, is how do we effectively manage this with the 100% of the cost, making sure though that our costs, as much as we possibly can, are co-funded costs, so that we receive those dollars for the continuation of the OFCC projects as they come, 6, 8 years down the road. That's the battle I kind of look at it at this, what we're in. I'm the only one struggling with that.
No, you're not.
You know, I'm gonna be upfront, and I'm not disagreeing with Brennan because he's a treasurer, but I really think we should focus in on, do we do square footage or do we do a storm shelter? I think number one can be footed by the district with PI money, and the rest is pie in the sky stuff that we can't afford right now. Maybe we can later on. That's just my take on it.
Before we start that discussion, can I just ask one question so we can maybe cross this off on the porcelain tile?
Sure.
Is that something that can be done later without a lot
Absolutely.
of
I think
effort?
the email that I sent to you guys last week, that is mostly cosmetic, but it's also cleanliness and maintenance, but it's not a priority.
This is like bathroom.
Yeah, it does reduce operational costs though. I mean, cleanliness wise.
No, that's why when we went around to these places, we kind of said, hey, we like this, what's the cost, to kind of get an idea, and then, is there money available for it? It's
So it
something that
would
could
be a
be
huge effort to add that to the
the option
block
B.
walls or
I
whatever.
mean, it's something that can be done later on. It's like terrazzo flooring. It can be done later on, although I wouldn't recommend that. I would love to have terrazzo flooring, but as a district right now, we can't afford it. That's my opinion. Nobody can argue the maintenance of it. Nobody can argue the longevity of it. But for that cost, I think our priority should be what can we get the most bang for our buck as far as being able to house kids.
And it was highly negative in the previous project.
Yeah, that's fine.
From the community standpoint.
Sorry, Danny, I couldn't hear that.
Yes, it was highly negative from the community.
Oh, the terrazzo.
Yes.
Well, if you remember the
previous.
original plan,
But I could see that because when you opened it up, you were already out of space here.
Right.
So that's kind of why as a group, I don't want us to make those same mistakes, although it could happen. We could build a school for 1,000 and it could still be too small. But at least we could tell people, listen, we tried to do everything we could to maximize our square footage. Unfortunately, there's nothing else that we could do at that time. And then when CFAP comes up, if we need to build another elementary, we will. Or if it's a middle school or high school or whatever. That's just my take.
So Jacob, what you're saying is what can we take out of the square footage so that we can get a wooden gym floor, for example? Something we could take that out. I'm just throwing that out there. Something out of the additional square footage so that we can do something else with it.
So the biggest area that I've identified, and I haven't spoke with Laura about this, our media center, in my thought, square footage wise for what's provided, is massive. Probably 3 times the size of the one we currently have in the elementary. So that's an area that you could reduce to get square footage elsewhere. Me personally, I think the extended learning areas would be great for instruction. I think the sensory room would be much needed. I think the media center space, having a size 3 times larger than we currently have, although it would be beautiful, I think we could still do 1,000 square foot less and have an extremely nice area. That's just my take on it. We have currently 1,600 square feet, and the one they're proposing is over 3,000.
Oh.
So
Is there a plan for another massive entrance like this project has? This entrance here is nice, but it seems to me that it was wasted space as well.
As in the front door thing?
Yes,
Right here.
well, just right here in front of the offices.
I don't think we've got that.
Okay, all right.
So Justin, can I just ask you a couple other things? So you mentioned the extended learning areas in the sensory room. I would not like to see the sensory yet. That's my personal opinion. Media center you mentioned. What about the extra, I don't call it extra, I don't know what it's called. Computer and tech, the computer and science rooms. I think those were larger rooms. There's an art room, music room. Do those have any of the same kind of characteristics that you're just talking about with the media center? Like, are they
The
possible?
only ones that you could potentially, in my opinion, that you could take a look at would be the science/computer rooms that are a little larger. You could do some adjustment there with square footage, put some sinks in it. I would not recommend shrinking the music or the current art room, but it just depends. I mean, we're still really early in the design process. So I can't tell you exactly what that science/computer room is going to look like. But
Just
I
remember
but I
those
would also
things
say,
they
I think it would be beneficial as a district instructionally to start offering technology type instruction to kids at a younger age. I think currently we're starting in third grade, which is not the most beneficial when you have third grade students taking state tests on computers. And they really don't get any formal typing type work until that grade level. I mean, I think the district should start looking at second grade to at least start teaching basic keyboarding skills and that kind of stuff, but that's just my opinion.
No, and I don't disagree with that. In fact, I 100% agree with it. I was just asking because those rooms are a little larger.
That would be an area,
Is that close to where-
that would be an area if you wanted to look at actual instructional space, you could adjust that one as well. I think there's 2 or 3 of them. Like, I don't have a floor plan memorized.
There was 3.
3, where it's a computer / science room.
Jacob,
Yes.
before we continue so much in the weeds, I was looking at Brennan's spreadsheet, which he has up. If I read his numbers correctly, we have 1.451 million in the additional in the new construction fund. And then if I did my math right with fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023, we have $895,079. So together, I'd have to do the math. That would be roughly $2.346 million. So I guess I'm asking what Danny asked, we need to cut stuff. And I mean, we've already decided a couple of these are going to be optional: porcelain tile, rubber playground surface, or well, that was the trend of the discussion. I don't want to assume anything. So can we get an updated spreadsheet with all these numbers, Brennan? And we can take the turf off too, I believe, because that's going to be funded by athletic boosters, and see where we're at.
Well, let me ask you this, Lori, looking at those projected income, will that income be here at the time that we're required to pay the bill?
You won't finish paying these bills till probably some of them till the end of 2023, until everybody's signed off. And that would be a question for Lauren Brennan. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have answered.
PI money for this project is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm just saying it's there, but I would not pledge all your PI money to this project, because if something happens, you're gonna have to dip in your general fund.
Right.
I'm just saying you have it there, but I wouldn't pledge it all.
How much of it would you suggest we would have available, Brennan?
Maybe half.
And I would leave a contingency anyways.
Yeah, because that elementary current one, who knows what else will, happen since I've been here. I'm just saying. We're
No,
still
I think
before.
if we have an emergency, I think we have to go into the operating budget capital outlay like we have in the past. I know that's not your first preference, Brennan, but that is our backup plan.
Right.
I'm just saying, as your current treasurer, I mean, whoever comes in may have a different philosophy, but I would not pledge PI. PI money is not meant for capital projects. Well, I'm saying PI money can be used for like the interactive monitors, because you're acquiring something for something you have.
They can't be used for desks.
I would not pledge PI money, because that's not what you went for the voters for the outside. And what's on the inside, that's not what it was originally purposes for. It's to maintain what you have, or to acquire vehicles, which every year you're going to need another bus. And if there's no state grant money again, that's $90-some thousand. I mean, you have copier leases. As you get bigger, you're probably going to have more copiers that you're going to need. I'm just saying, I would not pledge more than 50%. So you have a cushion if something else hits the fan. I would not want you guys to get in the operating general fund. That should not be an option. Just that's my professional opinion. And that's what I've strived since I've been here to do, is not dip in that. Only time you should use operating general fund money for capital outlay is getting instructional computers for teachers, students, staff, and equipment and furniture if you need to. And that's it, is my professional opinion. Nothing else for capital outlay expenditure should come from your general fund. Your general fund is meant for day-to-day operation, which is your three biggest things, is salaries, benefits, and purchase services. That's what you should use your general fund for.
So based on that, then we could.
I would say you have about 350 to 400,000 PI if you wanted to pledge.
Right, so if we want to pledge 350 to 400,000 to pay for furniture for the new school and take.
But that's already included in the budget,
Yeah.
the 28, your furniture allowance, which we've bought new furniture this last couple of years, so we may not need that whole budget.
Right.
But that 28 and a half includes furniture.
Right, what I was saying was buy down that amount in furniture, so the PI money is used for PI stuff, and then allow that 400,000 that's pledged already to go to facility construction. And that PI is just purchasing that much of furniture. I was using that as an example,
I got you.
as a way to kind of shift those around. So that we could do it, then we know when that's gonna be hitting, and then we'd be able to forecast that. To make that decision. So it sounds like we have a couple other options, areas to go for. For example, if we chose to not do the expanded electrical and mechanical, we could be down into, reduce up to 300-ish thousand right there, which would allow us, some of that extra space on top of what we're seeing with the estimated unencumbered amount. But we also have to look at change orders, issues that are going to come up. Something's going to happen somewhere along the way that's going to require additional funds that I have a feeling that those are going to be needed at some point. And if not, then we can reinvest those as we're seeing how it's going, I would assume.
Laura, is that expanded electrical and mechanical, are those in the same areas or is that in a different part of the building in your design plan?
Basically, it's in just enlarging the mechanical rooms that we had in each area.
Yeah, so to take that out would just be shrinking that area. And then if we wanted to expand it later, we have to add it on when we add on other classrooms. And is that
Yes.
okay with the system we chose?
Yeah.
Okay.
It can be done. It's going to require more space later than what you would need to do now.
Okay. Thanks.
And then as another question, is the cost even factoring in? I know previous conversations, right, depending on where we place the stadium and where the building is being placed, could generate other costs associated with that. If I'm correct, if I recall about utilities and bedrock and extended water lines and all those pieces were all factors, I think, in trying to come up with that decision. I know Laura mentioned in the beginning that she has a great idea where it's going. I can tell you, I have no idea where it's going. I've had 10 different site plans previous to signing on Garmin Miller of where it could be. And that decision hasn't been brought forward up to at least the board, at least, to say this is where we're putting everything. From that aspect, that I don't want to discount that there could be additional costs with that site.
So yes, there probably will be additional site costs. But as the project moves forward, all of that would go within your budget for the K-5. So we've tried to identify the biggest impacts you're going to have, like the road extension. But other than that, the rest of it just goes within the budget of the K-5.
So Laura, you don't see us having any extraneous costs since we're more rural, or you think that would be okay with what's budgeted, I guess?
So that's a trick question. I can't answer that. Because we don't have all of the information yet. So one of the next things, so after having the visioning session and that group looking at the site plan and floor plan, and then having our football stadium group look at the floor plan and site plan, getting buy-off from both of those groups. If the location for the buildings are generally approved, the next step that we can do is to do the soil borings. And that's going to tell us additional information, make sure that we're good, that we've got enough money, that we think that everything's being held back. You do have contingency that's built into the budget, the contingency. That's why some of these numbers have all been inflated for your soft costs, and that's all included with soft costs. So can't say that there's not something, but hopefully we've prepared for it. We have contingency for it. We'll know more once we get the soil borings. We're trying to put the building in a good location so that we have coverage over utilities. Looking at where detention may be that makes sense for to be most economical.
Justin's.
Right, so I guess, so this discussed, you know, even almost like, talking about mechanical rooms and those different pieces, we could reduce some of that additional square foot cost. But nowhere in there do we think that even if we left the additional square foot cost at 1.361 million, required to do, if they approved the lighting project at 111,000, which takes us to almost 1.5, right? 1.472. Maybe 7.3, carry the cents there. That still doesn't leave space for the $800,000 for the storm shelter, or the 500,000 for the OC, the widening of the road. Was that already included, or am I missing that? Is that an LFI, right? For now, widening of 201.
The 200,000 would need to be added in.
200. Okay. So.
No. I'm sorry. I said that wrong. No, that
You'd have to pay.
200,000 would need to be added in. Sorry.
So it'd be 500,000 those for us for now.
Right. For now, correct.
Yeah. And that hasn't been added in yet. That's what I was kind of getting at, right? That's why it's here. So we gotta add that. Because we all know, right, that anytime we have any significant event here at the school, you can't get here, or you sit back up to 40. So we know that's also a significant need for the safety of personnel arriving and departing of the school. You know, that takes us to a significant amount as well. So.
What, can you just make sure? So Laura, for sure that we have to add 500 or only 200? There should be, the 300 was in there already, right?
The 300's in there already. So it should just be an additional 200,000.
On the 23.6, the 300,000 is already.
So in the 23.6 million projection, 300,000 is already there.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that's 200. All right. Just confirm that. Thank you for clarification. All right. So what that takes us to is just in the additional square footage, the lighting and the lighting of 201. That takes us into puts us in a position that there's, you know, then it takes us right back to Mr. Furch's question. Do we do the additional square footage for the additional classroom space and expand the facility to hold 1,000? Or do we do a tornado shelter to hold the 873 that the building would be built?
Laura, is the 398,000, et cetera, already in the budget as well? So it's only the extra 402,000 that we need to think about right now? Or no?
So the 342 number, that's an allowance. It's already built into the budget for the project. The 400,000 can be either looked at as an LFI that you add additional money to the project, or you look at it and you just reduce quality on the other items in the building to stay within your budget.
So for this is basically, it's kind of confusing, but just so I'm tracking correctly, so I put this in my brain. Our LFI that we're looking at right now to add to our budget is 200K for the widening of 201. And our LFI, right, for the storm shelter requirement is 400K to complete, to add those into our project. Am I correct, Laura?
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I look at it different though. I look at it as the widening is, you're gonna have to do it. You have to do it regardless. So I think you need to factor in somehow paying for that 5 or 300,000.
It'd be 200K.
Or 200, excuse me, I'm sorry, 200,000. That's a guarantee. It's not an LFI. It may be paid out of the LFI account, but it's not an LFI. As far as like an optional type thing. You know, modular rubber surface, that's optional. Porcelain, optional. Turf, optional. Terrazzo, optional. The widening has to be done. So figuring out how you're going to pay for the 200 grand, and if you do that, combine it with the storm shelter, or you do the 200 grand and you do the additional square footage and you figure out a way to pay for the rest. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, we have to widen 201. I want to do it, but it's probably.
Is there any portion of that that could come back? Wasn't there a possible safety grant or something where you were talking about? Through ODOT?
Years out.
Years out.
And I thought that was more towards carriage trails, wasn't it?
Was it like
40 and then, yeah, 2 and carriage trail.
But any of those in general, if you're getting a grant, it's about a 5-year. So you have to put it in right now, and probably you should be doing that for Aggie. Looking to the future.
Well, that was the other question I had as well, was this kind of threw me off when I asked about specifically that widening was depending on where the school sits would actually depend on where we would need to widen, whether it was 201 or whether it was Aggie. Possibly.
So what we were told is that 201 would be much cheaper than Aggie. Is that correct, Laura?
Yeah, I don't have a cost for Ag and Broad. It would be extensive.
So Laura, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but from the meeting as I remembered, it was because the road's so narrow, you have to do such a long distance that's going to be the cost, right? It's not just adding a left turn lane. It's basically the.
No, I believe you would also be widening all of 201 to get to that intersection, so.
So we won't have an Aggie Broad entrance exit. Which is one of the things.
Sewer extensions too.
So
Okay, so I kind of have some thoughts, if I could. If we can massage, for lack of a better word, but between the big media center and a couple of the other spaces that we thought about, massage the square footage a little bit and get that down maybe to 1.1 million. The storm shelter figure would be 450,000, just to have a little cushion there. The widening is 200,000, and we have $111,416. And altogether, that adds up to 1.861416. I feel like those numbers add up.
Also, just to let you know, some additional costs could be for when we had our athletic stadium, depending on the entrance. If the entrance is in that south, east location, you would have to do a clearance from our current parking lot to get to it. And I would be planning on using PI money for that.
Okay. I had no idea about that.
The cost on that.
Brennan, unless somebody has objections, can you take the rubber playground surface and porcelain tile out so that's gone?
Or you want the terrazzo out too, delay that?
Already.
It's already out, I believe. He deleted it, or move it to later, or make a list for later projects, because I think both of those were on the later list if there were funds. And also, Brennan, I think if you just widen column J, you'll get your value.
So just some quick numbers for you. If we shave 25% off of the square footage, that would be 1,388 square feet. That would save 340,000, which is about what you just said, Lyda. 33% would be 1,822 square feet, which would be a savings of 450,000 roughly, 449, 363. That's just strictly math.
So
Just an FYI.
So is the recommendation to cut the building to house less kids?
No, sir. I thought we were talking about reducing the size of the media center and hopefully recouping some costs there.
That was what I was asking.
What is square footage approximately, Laura?
We're showing 245.22.
I mean, 245.22, you could possibly, what's the current media center, 3,000 what?
The media center is at, so just the media center itself is at 2,620.
2,620, our current one is 1,600. They can often make it the same size as the one we currently have. If you want to make it smaller.
well, I think too though, right? So if we got rid of the additional mechanical space, that's around 300,000.
Do we need that mechanical space?
But if you do that, you can't have the building for 1,000 kids.
No, mechanical space.
Yeah,
That was, the extra mechanical space is for doing add-on.
but it's also for the 1,000 kids in the 3 classrooms and the restrooms.
No, I just specifically said the mechanical and electrical were additional.
I can't attribute all of that only to additional mechanical space because we did add additional square footage.
Oh, I was just thinking mechanical space only.
Well, every time we add square footage, it automatically goes ahead and adds corridor space, mechanical space, restroom space. Those are formulas that just keep changing based on the square footage in the rest of the Excel spreadsheet.
Got that. I thought that we were adding additional square footage to mechanical space so that we could add on to the facility later. That's what I was talking about. And now what was said, we enhanced the size of the mechanical room so that if we wanted to add on to the building later, that it would be easier to attach to.
Or balance.
That's additional space to not pay for the, adding on to the total building later. Moving that space so that when we do add on, we bring that cost in at that time. Does that make sense now? Yeah, sorry, I wasn't tracking the, additional stuff you were speaking of, Joseph.
Okay.
When I said that.
So the numbers that are in there are the numbers that are recommended for 1,000 students.
Right.
Laura, does the choice of HVAC help that situation at all? Is there any consideration for the size of those rooms based on the kind of?
Not a number that I can give you, no. So we have added additional square footage, but not enough. So the example for 1,000, sorry, no. So the example for 1,000 students is at 5,244. And we currently have, oh yeah, we did. We increased it exactly to that, 5,244.
Okay, so there's no extra space. I'll stop talking about the mechanical.
No, I'm saying that is built for 1,000.
Messing with my mechanical room.
So in order to have the extra classrooms, we have to have the mechanical space and so forth. It's all part of the formula.
I thought it was for, tying another wing onto the building.
Right.
We were putting all this extra in there so you add
Right.
HVAC in the same room. Right.
It looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, but if 873 is the number and we add 3 additional classrooms and that's 950 roughly, you're leaving extra space for about 2 more classrooms, right?
Yeah.
To be added on in the future.
Can I ask on the storm shelter, is that a priority for everyone?
It's not
I mean-
for me. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's not for me.
It kind of is for me. This is Julie. I think now, well, first of all, there's going to be no place for the kids to go. And dollar wise, now would be the time.
It is for me too, but full disclosure, my undergraduate degree is aeronautics, yes, but it was atmospheric physics and meteorology. So I studied tornadoes and definitely know a lot about them. And it is definitely a priority for me, especially at this cost factor. If we can find a way to just get $161,000 off that square feet, I think we can make it work. So that's why I'm trying to get us down to about 1.2 million if we can. I think we could make it work somehow. Maybe 1.1 million would be better, but I'm just saying I think it could be done if we can figure it out.
Jacob?
Yes. I'm torn as well. For the simple fact of what I do for a living. With safety and security practices, obviously it tells me that the facility is safer with it. But I also know that you have to evaluate the associated risk to the benefit that you're going to receive from it and the fiscal capability that you have as well. So it's a multi-tiered piece to make it look at it. So that's why I'm not personally able to write it right off of the page. From that example, and even when we were looking at an additional cost of around 400,000 in that avenue. So And these are, as Laura had stated, right, they've tried to add in some, I'm gonna use a really generic term, Laura, so I apologize, but some cushion in there to help affect us with fluctuating costs of material or anything that would cost more than currently projected. So I'm not too worried about a whole lot of cushion on our side to deal with that. And so, just so as we look at the dollar amounts, right, and we're really looking at how much LFI current dollars do we currently have Brennan established in this project, not asking for PI funding, is that 1.4?
Correct.
Okay, so at the current additional square footage and the lighting project required by our COP that we signed, that's pretty much the money. That doesn't even include the widening of 201 from that aspect as well. So
Just also to consider, Laura, what's the budget for furniture? I think it's like
Remember what that is offhand?
1 point something. But that's everything. But we've spent the last 3 years, 4 years, we've spent money to replace furniture. So you may not need to have that high of a budget because you
need the furniture here though. You're not gonna take furniture out of classrooms here to take over there and have empty classrooms.
didn't think you're gonna use all the classroom.
I don't know, I can't predict what we're gonna be at in 5 years.
Well, I'm just,
I thought you had to buy new equipment if it's a state deal.
it's not a state loan. This is all as it is, but we didn't take any money. We haven't taken any money for it. We're gonna get a credit on the CFAP. We're not gonna CFAP.
Oh, it's a loophole.
So
I'm just saying,
we could-
the previous ones I've done, they're not used. Bring it over.
So we're saying that there could be some adjustment in furniture pending whether we utilize some of the furniture we currently have, or we break some of that out and purchase it with PI money versus this, as well as what we kind of discussed.
Well, you wouldn't use PI money to buy the furniture. You would use what's in your budget for your cops.
Hey, Laura, quick question for you. It's Justin. With the difference between ELP and CFAB, do districts, would we put ourselves in a better position financially with CFAB, with the storm shelter and the state paying for it with a credit or not?
It's not any different.
All right.
Laura,
I do
since
have an answer. Sorry, I do have an answer on that furnishings. I found that number. So in the K-5 only, breaking down the costs, we've got basically loose furnishings about 5% of the budget. So it's roughly about $1 million.
this may be a stupid question, Laura. Are there ways during CFAP we can modify the building to be storm shelter compliant, or is that not possible?
Not possible.
Is there some design standard to a standard building without a storm shelter in terms of wind speed or anything like that? I mean, we don't have a storm shelter currently, right?
But we do have a basement with no windows that the kids can go to.
In elementary.
And,
Well, not all of them go down.
no, not all of them, agreed. These are our smallest kids. So.
I mean, I guess I agree with Lyda and Julie in the fact that it would be really nice to have the state to pay for a lot of it. But practically, I'm really concerned spending this kind of money, given the odds it would happen. I would like to hear from Rick and Caleb and Chris, what their opinions are.
This is Chris. I guess my opinion would be, you know, obviously nobody wants to say that they don't want to spend money on a storm shelter to keep kids safe, but if you look back at the strategic plan, I think it pretty directly spells out, you know, I guess planning for overcrowding of classrooms. And so that would be where I guess I would direct all of the money, you know, that it would take. In my opinion. For all of the money that's available.
So the actual overcrowding of classrooms probably wouldn't occur. We wouldn't run out of actual space probably until about 5 years after the building opens. If the trend continues the way it has, because we talked about backfilling the elementary. So that's probably the.
Backfilling the elementary, middle school kids, correct?
Correct. And I don't know how that would work with the furniture. It seems like I'm kind of with Brennan if we can reuse that furniture, because I don't think you can set middle school age kids in those little desks. But over that 5-year period, some of them probably need.
I remember how happy, Lori, that we all were when we were grandfathered out of the having to have the storm shelter. It seems to me that for the percentage of time that the building is used, that it's not a wise spending move.
Rick and Caleb, can I hear from you, please?
Yeah, this is Rick. Laura, isn't the wind speed, design wind speed 90?
250.
No, standard.
Standard.
For roofing, yes. I
Oh.
think that's right.
So that doesn't include the whole building?
I can't remember, sorry.
Okay. Because I knew we had rooftop units, we had to design for 90, which is about 20% or 40% of the force of a hurricane or a tornado. So kind of what, 90 and 200. So yeah, with our limited funds, I would say the additional classrooms, and the state's gonna hit us with that 500,000 to widen the road. The storm shelter is a high priority, but I don't know that we can afford it. And hopefully, as we get down through the design process and the bidding, we'll have a little extra money left over, and we can pick up some of these other little items.
This is Caleb. I would tend to agree with both Chris and Rick. I mean, that is a lot of what the community has said they feared was the lack of space, more or less, when we opened up this building. And although the storm shelter would be great, it just doesn't look like we can, quote unquote, afford it right now.
So Laura, will we be able to add this as an optional item in the initial bidding process so that if the other cost estimates come in lower, that we would be able to add it in for construction?
Sorry, the storm shelter? No, we need to make a decision. We're either doing it or not.
Okay. just out of curiosity, with the storm shelter, as it's designed, what, will it hold 100% of the capacity of the facility, or is it only a small portion of the school at this dollar amount?
It has to hold the entire capacity. No golden tickets.
Okay. And so you're gonna pick a space for that to be, is that like the building itself, or is that a specific room? That's what I'm trying to understand. Is it?
No, from last week at the facilities, so we had done a rough calculation on the number of 1,000 students, roughly 160 staff or something like that, I think. We were looking at, it's approximately 9 classrooms, but that also has to include mechanical space with a generator. That has to include, but that was only if we looked at classroom space. If we can configure hallways as well, then we may be able to reduce it down to maybe 8 classrooms.
Thank you.
So the gym wouldn't work.
The gym could work as a space, but we would have to move we'll have to just look at moving restrooms to, so that the restrooms are within the square footage area for the storm shelter.
Does one of those options come out cheaper than the other? Because I kind of thought from the beginning, they always said it's usually the gym. This is the storm shelter.
So, many times we have seen gyms, we've also seen other spaces. And I gave roughly a cost of somewhere between an additional 400 to 600,000. So can I tell you that we're going to design a certain way and we're going to go at 395? No, I can't do that.
I don't know. I'm as an educator, I'm just thinking about getting all these little kids and trying to get them safe in a tornado, and they haven't been through very many tornado drills like our older students have. And it's just difficult for me to make a decision that says we don't have a safe place to get them to quickly. And I'm struggling with saying no. I know that we need square footage. I understand that. And I'm just trying to find a way to massage those numbers and maybe make other spaces a little bit smaller if we can, to try and get just enough money, maybe a little bit out of PI if we can, to make this work.
Brandon, are you able to see if there's any community input as well on our discussion?
There is none.
Mrs. Henry, have any thoughts?
We have community input already.
Yes, yeah, I was just wondering.
Okay.
Mrs. Henry says go for the classroom space. I'm one of the classrooms that doesn't go down to the gym when there's a tornado drill warning, whatever. I'm one of the classrooms that stays in the room with the kids.
I mean, to be clear, I would not want to do it in lieu of. That is not my choice. I'm trying to find a way to do it in addition to.
I just think light of the budget numbers will be so tight if we do the storm shelter. We will have no wiggle room with the stadium, which we already know we're probably going to have to pull a few funds from somewhere else of no fault of anyone's. And I can't in good conscience, even though I know it's a good idea to do, put that money to the storm shelter. So my vote would be not to do it, or my we don't really vote in this, but my opinion would be not to do it at this time.
So,
I was just gonna say, do we know any idea, schools that have been built in the area in the past, who's done them, who hasn't? I mean, that may not be a popular question to ask, but
So I did a little research just to see, and I think it was hard to find any articles about schools that have completed a storm shelter, because I think the requirement just started in 2017. Clark County, an article came up about them doing one. Fairborn, none of these were completed at the time of the articles. The only one that I saw that was completed was Dover High School, and they actually did it for the OFCC, within the OFCC recommendation. Don't know how, but the other ones that I read about had not been completed at that time. So I don't know, maybe Laura has some.
A lot of local schools did, but they're part of CFAP, so.
Yeah, it's and a little different where we would only be paying that 20% OCC right now, and this would be not even a question versus having fronted as 100% on the front end from that aspect. Sorry.
Even if you were doing this project CFAP, it would still be a question to the board at this point, whether you're going to include it or not.
Right.
But they wouldn't be paying 100% right now. They would be paying the co-funded.
Right. The allowance just goes away. Right.
So I'm almost at the point where just saying, you know, let's just pledge all the LFI that we have in that difference there. Say yes to the storm shelter, yes to the widening of 201. And get as much as we possibly can in additional square footage based on what we get the price for. We have estimates right now, but from that, whatever they come in at, that would put us in a zero motion, zero ability to flex, I think, or at least make it extremely difficult to flex if there's greater issues. Does that, I mean, that's about the only thing is there anything else that we have to decide right now, Laura, versus waiting on what are the bids that come in to determine the total cost, the overall projected cost?
Okay, so when we do a project, we have a budget. And that's the first thing we got to know is what exactly is the budget. So if you're saying the budget being in flux and you're waiting until you get your final costs, your final, and when the construction manager does their final bid, they're not even going to bid it. We're going to get a guaranteed maximum price first. And we're going to design the project based on this budget that you've established. But if you don't have that money for that budget, and then we have to go back and we have to modify the drawings to take things out of it, that's called redesign. And I don't want you to get to that point where now I have consultants who want additional funds because now they have to redesign the documents. So the first part is we got to have a budget. We got to know that you have the money for that budget. I want to set you up for success. I don't want you to plan on, let's just keep going and we'll just keep designing and then we'll cut things out when we don't have the money for it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I was saying that we wouldn't add it in right off the bat. We would, I mean, the only thing you told me we had to add in right now was a storm shelter. No questions asked. You had to have a yes or a no. But the additional square footage would be an optional bid. And if we were able to find that.
The additional square footage is all built in. It's not like a wing off of a building. So you couldn't just say, nope, we're not going to build it. And just, that won't happen. It's all built in, it's all integral, it's all intermingled. So we can't bid square footage like that as an alternate. You either have the money and we design it, or you don't have it and we take it out right now at programming before we even finalize the schematic design.
So that is I thought the federal government did things in a horrible fashion, but they actually did with options. And then once we get the actual bid prices, then we establish all the options that we're accepting into the actual print.
So, okay, so when we start the programming, we start with programming. And with that, we look at where you are with costs, where you are with square footage, and that's what we're doing right now. And then confirming, yes, you have the budget, or yes, you have the funds for this. The next step then with that is schematic design. And then we look at the site plan and the floor plan. We design the site plan to the program to match the program, because we've already, confirmed that, yes, the program is on, you've got the budget for that. So then when we got schematic design, we do an estimate of that. The construction manager does an estimate to make sure that here's the budget and where you're at and you're on budget. And then you're always going to be over budget. It's schematic design. That's the way it works, because nobody's told you no to any of these things yet, so you want it all. And so, and it happens. And so then we look at the budget for schematic design and we say, hey, like, you're over budget. So what do you want to, what can we start whittling down? Now, if those are things like, if they're small, simple things like, well, let's change out the flooring, and instead of carpet A, we're going to provide flooring B, and here's the cost for that. That is something simple that you could pull out potentially as an alternate. And we could, well, we really want this carpet, so we're going to bid it as an alternate. And then that's something later on, if you have the funds for, yes, you take that and you go ahead and do that. But square footage isn't something that we can look at as an alternate. So, or like other items, like if they say, well, if you reduce your roof slope down, you can save so many dollars. Well, that isn't something that we're going to do an alternate for roof slope A and roof slope B. That's getting very complex, starting to do all of that, because that affects other disciplines as well. So those are not things that you either make the decision to keep it in or you take it out, and take that cost savings to stay on budget. We also look at a budget again at design development, and then they will go through and do a guaranteed maximum price off of the documents. And then from there, they will bid it out. So then you see the savings then, and then get to select alternates. I hope I explained that well.
So is a wood gym floor an alternate or not?
It could be. That is a simpler one that you could, because we'll have to lower the floor, recess the floor slab to put that in. That could be an alternate. Interactive monitors could be an alternate.
Yeah, those will come off. We can do that out of our own, out of the PI funding, I believe, and just take that out of this equation. Would be, I think what Brennan said and what Justin had said. Would be my take on that. Move it. An alternate there. So. Currently, you said in the widening of 201 that there's like $300,000 there, and we would only need to add 200,000, correct? That's already in your estimated budget?
What's in the estimated budget?
So the State Route 201 widening, you currently have already counted in our regular budget 300,000 for that
Correct.
widening.
Yes.
So the rest is 200,000.
Yes.
So can we say that we only want to do $300,000 worth of work?
I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be enough. based off the information that we had, a meeting that we had with ODOT and our civil engineer.
Is it a mandate or a requirement that we have to do?
It may be, but we don't have
I'm sorry, I broke up, Laura.
we don't have the oh, what is that called? The study back. I'm at a loss for words now. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just trying to step through this crazy way that I try to think. So even if the safety study comes back, will it be mandatory by law that we put in that roadway work?
I would
I
anticipate.
don't know. I've never gone against a study for the. I don't know how to answer that one. Sorry. I mean, it's not like we can shorten up the distance to make that length of road shorter, because then we're getting into your existing detention area. So that's not a wise choice, because then you're going to be moving all of that detention area to try and make the road shorter. Don't know how well that would work, or that you'd be saving any costs.
Right, okay. I'm just asking the questions. I don't know. I don't even know where the road's going. I have no idea where an entrance is that you're speaking of, and I don't know how anything's gonna be laid out because I have not seen that. I don't know everything that is put into 100% what's in the original price of the building and what that includes. I don't know any of that. So that's why I'm asking, like, everything I thought we probably could do, you crushed all those dreams. So, and showed that you have to do it this specific way. So.
I'm very sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
Oh, it's okay. I'd rather get it now than understand it now than later, and make a really bad decision. So with that being said, I mean, can we even afford the additional square footage? Can we afford the additional square footage by doing the road and the project for the high school? Can we even afford that additional square footage that's listed?
Yes.
I don't understand, because just with the, let's see,
You would use some PI money. Remember I said you could use about half? So you have about $450,000. That'd take care of that. That would take care of that. And if you wanted to do the wood floor, it would take care of that. And I'm pretty sure this will probably be lowered a little bit if the media centers decreased a little bit. So that will lower that a little bit. So then you have enough to cover that, as well as the lighting project for the high school.
so you're saying that if we use that PI money that you're showing there, that we'd be able to afford everything but the storm shelter?
Yeah, we come up about $229,000 short.
And just to remind everybody, we have not factored any extra money in for the athletic stadium. And I think we are going to need to do that at some point moving forward.
I agree. We have a couple board members who the storm shelter is not something that we would like to see. We have 3 community members who have been loyal in meetings for the facilities committee that really don't see the need. We have the vice president of the teachers union who would rather see the space, and we have our superintendent, who I don't think we're listening to enough, that doesn't see the need for it, sees other needs as well. And I think Lori is right concerning the stadium also. And our treasurer is telling us the same thing.
So can I just say something?
Wait a minute. I hesitate to say these kind of things because more times than not, I'm wrong. But I know we had a small tornado over on Palmer Road a couple of years ago, but this school has stood for more than 100 years. And I know we've had once a century storms 3 times in the last 10 years here probably. But I don't think we're listening to enough of the people that we should be listening to. Julie.
So I am for the storm shelter, as I said, but here's my not long-term concern even, but the building's gonna be full when we open it, no matter what we do. Right, and upping it to 1,000 could buy you a year, maybe even 2, assuming the trends continue once again, because I don't know if they will or not. But assuming the trends continue as they have, they'll buy us a year, maybe 2. Then we're going to be out of space again. I mean, and that will be putting additional students in classes and doing some of the things that we talked about where we could get 1,000 in an 873 building. So I would hate to sacrifice an entire storm shelter that's costing us almost nothing in the long run. Up front, I understand we got to pay it up front, just for, a year, possibly 2 of students. And we're not even out of space really, because we still have the elementary school. So it's a trade-off for me that I don't understand the buying of just 1 or 2 years and then sacrificing the storm shelter.
Those are some really good points, Julie, as well as, even the points that Danny brought up. It's not that, I know personally, I'm not one that's discarding any of the information being provided by Mr. First, Brennan, other board members, and the vice president of the BEA. From that aspect, I'm looking at it as a one decision factor of the decision we make here today will live on for 30 years. And the fact that in the event that once in a lifetime event does occur, you were the one that said no. So I live in that world of the possible, maybe not the probable, to occur. So that's where I have a little bit of hesitation with regards to $400,000 and this project. I said 400, right? So 400,000. I understand the great methodologies for how we've come to this solution and trying to break down every element of cutting.
800,000.
Right, well, 400 for us right now.
458, because it's 342.
458, okay, $458,000, which is almost half of what's needed for the additional square footage for that. So it really drives me to the point of, trying to gain the extra square footage is probably the vital piece, because whether we have a really nice storm shelter associated with the new building, all the kids that will be sitting in the potential modulars outside will have none, as we have now. There isn't a storm protection really for them until they have to get in the building to get there, if we have time and notice. So several of these storms come in with little to no notice that can occur for those levels of protection. Hence the fact that a storm shelter piece would be the most appropriate, but it only help the 8 classrooms, not the whole K-5, for those short durations, short notice events. And so based on that methodology is why then I would say that I would agree to not do the storm shelter and continue on with other items, picking the square footage at the part of the classroom, brick and mortar classroom.
So what about a compromise in between where we put some of the extra square footage in? Like I said, if you could reduce it to 1.1 million, then that would give you the money. The storm shelter allowance is 398,244, so it's right under 400,000. So if we, like I said, if we could cut 25%, either save that off of the room somewhere, that would buy us $340,426, which would be the majority of the storm shelter.
Laura, is that possible? Or practical? Would we be able to reduce some square footage in classrooms or other spaces?
So we've already reduced square footage in classrooms. And the teachers going on tours looked at the different sizes of spaces. Could square footage be cut elsewhere? I mean, sure. I know Justin mentioned the possibly 1,000 square feet in the media center.
If you took the media center down to its current square footage, I don't even know if this works in architectural world, but my calculator says 245, 220. Is that even realistic to say, Laura? I don't want to get you in trouble.
To reduce it by what?
If you took it down 1,000. I'm just throwing a number out there.
Could we reduce it by 1,000? Yes. I think we have.
Would that equate to 245, 220 as my smartphone calculator says? Or is that going to take that's probably not going to be an exact number, but.
Yeah, 245.22, so yeah,
Yep,
Yeah.
we're using the 45.22.
By an architectural world.
I missed what you said, Laura.
You're essentially going to still have, I would assume, like mechanical costs.
Yeah,
That's
what I mean.
associated with the media center in general.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be too.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I can work with her on some stuff, but we're gonna have some decisions by the 31st.
This is assuming there are not $450,000 in downgrades that you could do to the rest of the building, correct? In flooring and other things, or you can't use that money towards that.
I mean, everything else is base level right now. That's why we kind of brought up all these LFIs and say if you wanted to go up with the beefed up.
I was just saying, talking square footage, reducing square footage, you can't reduce any additional costs other than that, basically.
Just some of those areas that we had discussed as part of the media center, extended learning areas, sensory room, cafeteria, science, computer lab, media center. You have to look at instructional spaces.
I don't think we should put it off. That's why we're here. We're here to make a decision.
So based on that, how do we go forward making a decision? I guess. Because it's the facilities committee, but a special board meeting as well. So is it
Could one of the facilities committee members make a recommendation?
so yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. So Brendan,
There's no recommendation, you just state what you're gonna do.
So there's no vote, there's just,
Well, in the past, when we've had facilities meeting, we made a recommendation to the board and then gone around and either supported or not supported it.
And I would make a suggestion, if you guys don't want it to be distinguished between a facility and a board meeting, you only need 2 board members on your facility. You don't need 3. Because when you do special meetings, they're board meetings. They're not facility special meetings. They're board meetings. It's the only time you have to do a special meeting notice. That's why most subcommittees only have 2 board members on the committee. This is the first district I've been, that I've audited or been a part of that have more than 2 board members.
okay, so this is a board meeting. So,
Well, Jacob, based on what I heard and what our teachers rep said and what our community parents, grandparents, community rep on the facility committee said, I will make a recommendation that at this time, we do not pursue the storm shelter.
Is that a motion? There's no voting. You're just stating what you're doing. That's what the special meeting was, to determine what LFI is to do.
right, so at this point though, so we can give what we're gonna do as, will we then ask every board member to say what they want us to do? Or does everybody say yes or no to her recommendation, Brent? That's what I'm trying to get at, how do we do it the right process?
You guys can determine it however you want to determine. If you want to do a straw, I mean, there's no, you're determining it says determine the LFI costs.
Right, so then,
It's however you guys want to determine it. There's
Right,
no,
There doesn't have to be a vote to spend that extra money.
no. You're determining your budget.
No, the money that's gonna have to come from the PI.
No. Have you voted to spend out PI on any other thing that we bought?
buses.
But that was over $50,000. You've already approved the cost of the.
I'm just throwing it out there, like.
You guys can, I mean, if you want to list who's for what and tally up the vote, you can, but.
Or I can just go, okay, Lori, yes or no to the storm shelter, I think her answer was no to the storm shelter, am I correct?
Yeah.
Lida, yes or no to the storm shelter?
Yes.
Danny, yes or no to the storm shelter?
No.
Julie, yes or no to the storm shelter?
Yes.
I will say no to the storm shelter, that's 3 yeses, or 3 no's and 2 yeses. We will go forward with, at this time, no to the storm shelter requirement. As we push forward with the budget. But ask, there's an opportunity to get to storm shelter between now and the 31st by looking at some square footage. I would like to, if that's the case, then readdress.
I'll work with Laura and sort of spaces that we talked about to see what we can come up with.
If at all possible, that's what I'd like to do. I think now, given the information that we have at this time, that we can't do it, for it, and get the square footage that is needed. But definitely want to see if it can be done. So we can change that by the 31st. All right,
So I'm still confused on the, so we're going forward with all of the extra square footage? Or we're still gonna go for the, taking maybe 25% out? What happened there? Because I don't understand with the money, it's still gonna be a couple $100,000 over, isn't it?
I think we're doing it as proposed. Laura is going to work with Justin to see if there's anything that can be squeezed a little bit to get money for the storm shelter, but otherwise the 1,361,706.66 is what we're going with.
And then we still have to spend the 111 on the lighting.
Correct? And the 200,000 for the 201 widening. I think that's what we're all pretty much agreeing to.
So that's 1.673.
As I stated earlier. This and a little bit of this and this will be paid for out of PI. The remaining of this and this will be paid with the 1.45.
So we have enough TI to pay for the interactive monitors,
Right,
the 201 additional cost to get that done,
right.
and a little bit of the additional square footage.
Yep.
And that'll cover that. And then the remaining square footage, the lighting project will then take up to 1.4.
As I said, you could use about half of this. And allocate the other half towards unexpected other items.
And Brennan, I would just like to especially thank you for all the time you took putting this chart together, because this really helped all of us summarize and discuss this tonight. I know without this, it would have been much more difficult to make our decisions tonight. So thank you for all the time you spent, even updating it on the fly.
You're welcome.
So just for a point of clarification. So we just agreed, not 100%, to execute about 2.2 something million dollars. And we don't have to vote on that?
I have contact your legal then. I don't know. I don't think you do, but if you don't believe what I'm telling you.
No, I'm asking.
I didn't have it in here to vote. I said you guys would determine. And I sent that notice out last week, and now I'm getting a question as we're in the meeting. It's the same story as before. If you don't believe what I say, contact your legal, because as of what I'm telling you what I know. That is my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you, Brent. I was just asking just for a secondary clarification. And because it's a special meeting.
You only can do what and it didn't say you guys were voting. It said you were determining.
So when we vote on the overall budget is when we would approve all that? Is there a vote on that later or no?
You would vote to approve the awarded contracts for each phase of the project. That's when you guys would approve the contracts. Would be within the budget that is established.
And the majority of this falls into the voted on 945 that we did for the certificate, the COPs.
Well, the 20 and a half part of
20 and a half,
that's
right?
the TIF money that the board allocated.
We did that. Just
Correct.
Just
you're gonna approve the contracts. Once the guaranteed maximum price, and then once the bids are received, and when it's who's ever awarding, the board approves all those contracts, which would be within what Garmin Miller and the district has established as the budget for each project. That's when you would approve that.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, also along the way, when we do different phase submissions, so like schematic design, design development, somebody will be signing off on that package, on all the documents that come together with the estimate that this is the budget.
You've done that already with some of those commissioning agents.
Yes.
CMR.
Laura, I did hear some repeated concerns during the meeting tonight about the board members not seeing a plan for the layout of the campus with the new building and athletic complex. Can we make sure that that is presented at the next facilities meeting in January?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
The only thing left on this board is the wood gym floor.
Is the what?
The wood gym floor.
I don't know how important it is. I do know that it's different than a tartan floor, obviously. It is 15% of the money that was required for the storm shelter. It's the least expensive item that was up there, up on the board.
Laura, would it be appropriate to list that as an alternative? So if there is funding available at the time, we can go forward with it.
I don't generally like doing alternates before I even get to programming. Because you're not going to like how the rest of this process goes, because you're going to have a lot more alternates. It's either, I mean, we can,
So what's the greatest advantage? Because I truly don't know what the perk is there.
of a wood floor.
Yeah.
Over I think it's preference.
What, I'm sorry?
It is preference for elementary students playing on it. Safety is still, resilient athletic floor is still safe for students. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to like a linoleum floor that doesn't have any cushioning. I think for most people, it's probably more nostalgia than anything else. That's all they've ever known.
Well, if I could put my 2 cents in for run the b-ball program for 15 years for younger kids, most of the schools that we go to now, our elementary gym right now is just inadequate for much of anything. So I can see this new gym being used a lot for game type situations. Jacob brought it up. And I mean, to get more realistic game type situation, we're putting in a full size gym. I mean, my 2 cents is it should be moving forward. I mean, I can see that gym getting used a lot for, that type of
More than
situation.
just elementary.
More than just elementary, yeah. But that's my 2 cents. I mean, I know you guys have got a lot of tough decisions, but that's kind of my 2 cents. So,
Justin, would it be inappropriate to place this with the sponsorship with the athletics, or is that kind of out of place and that shouldn't be kind of there?
That's a good question. I never thought about that.
I mean, the sponsorship of the gym, in that plethora for that 60,000.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I mean, I think that'd be a question also to Lori and Danny to kind of put that together. What are your thoughts on that? And then share your thoughts with the rest of the facility members and board members that kind of approve that policy or that development.
I think we need to ask Damon, since he's the athletic director, what his thoughts are. I mean, I'm not the right person. I'm fine either way, but Damon's the one that might have input that really matters.
It'd be interesting to know too, if there's ongoing costs that are associated with one versus the other, what those might be. Because I think when we went to the Troy school, I don't remember what floor they had, but the guy said it was green.
It had the tartan floor.
What was
It
that?
had the tartan floor.
Tartan.
Yes. That Laura is talking.
Yeah, remember they said that was a green and they did almost nothing.
Right. I don't believe there's much maintenance involved.
So my thought is if the gym's going to be more for just elementary and PE class and that type of stuff, you're probably partner for. If it's going to be used more for game situation, basketball stuff, which I mean can be used for both. I think you're looking more at wood for. So I guess it's what are you going to be using the gym for?
And just from my recollection, I believe Milton Union has wood floor in their elementary gym, and Miami East does as well. I just think for my own kids traveling for b-ball. And those are newer facilities.
Brendan, based on your calculations and your numbers, is there funding there to consume the 60 and what we've already done?
Yeah, it's just like Lori says, though, you gotta keep in mind that we might have to use some of the funds for athletic stuff. So.
Laura, when would we have to decide on the wood gym floor? I know you don't like options, but is that something we have to decide tonight?
No.
No.
And for the cost, I know for the ones that we currently have, we have, what is it that they do every summer? They refinish it, and then before I started, they had to come in and sand them down. And
You only do that about
every time it's 12, 13 years, so. And we have a pretty good company that comes in, does it, it's pretty good cost. But we've also bought equipment to hopefully do it ourselves.
At the top list.
Right.
You didn't tell me that when I introduced you.
All right. So I say that what we'll do now is with the wood gym floor, there's the option to make it I forget what term you were using. Alternate. But look at alternate funding pathways so we can say yes or no earlier with regards to sponsorships or if Brennan decides that we have it, but I would rather make that $60,000 decision with regards to if the 60,000 is the difference between if we do some cutting to get the storm shelter versus the wood floor, then I would want to wait till we hear what we get out of that.
Let me talk to Mr. Smith about that tomorrow as well.
Yes, sir. And so we don't have to answer that right this second. I'd say let's leave it on board for sure, and then look at those alternative strategies. We'll make a full decision between now and 31st. Is there any other discussion with regards to the LFIs that we needed to discuss?
Well, I think we should add in a factor, whatever Brennan thinks, before we budget the storm shelter for possible overage for the athletic complex. Because I think, again, as I've said, there's some funds there we're going to need. I don't know what they are. I haven't been to those meetings, nor do I want that level of detail at this point. But I think we would be remiss not to put that in there.
In this budget, or can Brendan keep track of that in his PI category for himself of what he knows to let go of or hold on to? Like, how do we put that in this budget?
Well, I would put it in your locally funded initiatives because anything that's over that 2.5 or $2.8 million is going to have to be funded from somewhere.
Well, yeah, and the gym's 100% funded by, or the athletics is 100% funded by us. So.
Right. I just don't know where that line item goes in the school budget or in the stadium budget, or where do we put that? Like,
This budget includes both projects right here.
Okay.
So this right here is the K-5 and athletic. Known budgeted expenditures as of right now. So the only thing I'm aware of for the athletics that's not in here right now is the clearing. If it's determined where the entrance is the clearing to get from the parking lot to the entrance.
That would be like clearing of trees and stuff.
Yes. It's the only thing I know as of right now that has not been an anticipated cost. And you could use, I would use PI money related to that because you're improving your site.
But we're gonna have to come up with some extra parking lot money.
I don't know. It just depends where you're right. But I didn't, yeah, a little bit, but
yeah,
you know, like I said, I haven't seen any. All I know is they were getting prices for everything known that we're gonna need, but I haven't seen anything yet. But yeah, that could be another one. You can use more, like I said, that's just my professional opinion is only 40% or 50%. But you could use more, but then, like I said, if something happens, you're going in your operating budget. Which I don't want you guys to have to do, so, you know me, on worst case scenario.
Well, and it gives us a cushion from PI if something unexpected comes up too. And I agree with that, Brennan, and not spending all the PI because in 3 years, we may have other expenses we're not aware of right now.
But as of right now, we've technically pledged 330,000. That's not in here. So.
By the end of.
And that's as of right now, but with the additional square footage, if it's shrunk a little bit, then you're lowering that. I'm just saying as what those numbers are on right there. Oh.
Yeah.
You guys are in a good position. It's just, again, there's a lot of
Right. All right, well, I think we have a significant way forward for the largest portion of the LFIs with regards to the K-5 building at least, and the roadways that are gonna support both projects. The hardest part is the fact that we're spending all the money up front and that all this other money will be coming back in. All the other projects that will be going on, this is pretty, significant for us to try and maximize all our capabilities. So with the amount of money we're able to get without having to ask voters for more money, so I feel really good about where we're at and where we're headed. Just gonna depend a whole lot on Brennan, your financial advice for us stepping forward. We have to make some of these decisions between now and when all the program documents go out. Meet all of Laura's timelines for budgeting with regards to those pieces and what we can afford and what we can't, not impacting, trying not to impact, a 5-year forecast, where we're at financially, all those aspects. Because I know we have other things coming up with contract negotiations and all those different elements that also want to maintain true to our teachers and staff as we have been pressing forward with everything else. And impact some of those things that are there going forward.
And Jacob, I want to mention publicly something the architect said in the second visioning meeting. He said if we can get the reason we're making this decision tonight is because if we can get the early site package out in May or June, maybe it's earlier than that, Laura, what is the time frame to get the early site package out?
Looking at May.
If we do that, we will probably save 8% on construction costs rather than waiting a year because of COVID and the pandemic and how it's affected the construction industry. So I'm not saying we're going to get all that money back, but it would cost us that much more if we wait a year. So I do think we need to make that decision tonight.
Okay. That's a good point. All right. Is there any other items to discuss on the LFI?
So what exactly is the budget for the LFIs? So it's the 1451 plus half of the 895. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
It landed.
1.9.
Okay.
450 plus the 145.
Minus 2.67. No. Just kidding.
What's that, Jacob? You're gonna make a
What's the
donation?
450?
What's that?
What's the 450?
Half of anticipated fund balance as of 2023. based on what current PI expenditures we have or anticipate.
And we believe that should cover current, as of today, everything that's in orange. Laura?
Yeah, that should cover everything in orange.
With the hope that you and Justin working together might add something else in that. All right. So I think we've determined our potential FI costs. So at this point, I believe we need to adjourn the meeting. Unless anybody has any other discussion in regards to O5. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Thank you, Danny, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Lida.
Thank you, Lida, for the second. Discussion?
I just want to say thank you, everyone, to hearing me out, especially on the storm shelter part. I really appreciate that. I know that a lot of you are opposed to it, and that it's not an easy thing to try and squeeze and massage numbers to try and make it happen, but I do feel heard, and I appreciate you guys taking the time and making the effort to see if that's even possible. It really is a big deal to me, and I do appreciate you guys taking that effort.
Thank you, Lida. That was actually very well spoken.
You sound surprised.
Not the way you spoke it, but everything you pulled into that statement. That's all. You're highly educated, super smart. So when you speak, I listen. So any other discussion items? All right. Brittany, could you call the vote, please?
Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Ms. Mansfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ashton?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.